do.
Oh, yeah. Everybody ready? Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be back in person again, and I hope it stays this way for a very long time. I have one individual for public comment tonight. Jesselyn Jerez, is that how I say it? Close? Jerry.
Jesselyn Jarris to 183 High Street. I'm here today, and I took a couple notes, but I had a couple things. One is that I think the mask mandate ends on Friday, and I appreciate seeing a lot, but I do wish everyone had one on because our kids go to school here. And living with immunocompromised people in my bigger life, that's really important. And I just feel like, I know masking's been a really big issue here in Bristol Warren, and I just don't understand why everyone can't appreciate other people's struggles. So I just want to say that. One question I have is, what is the school department's approach and the teacher's approach to masking once the mandate ends? Because I know several people that are immunocompromised that go to school here, and I think that we haven't really talked about that yet, and I'd be curious to hear what people have to say about it. What's the messaging to families, and especially what's the messaging to our kiddos? I have an elementary school kid and a middle schooler, and I just want to know how we're approaching that. I know it's different on all levels. And then are we continuing testing, and what's the protocol for that? I haven't really seen a lot of guidance on that yet. And my one last comment I want to make is that as much as I appreciate that there's public comment for the school committee meetings, I almost feel like it should be a little bit more of a Q&A. I feel like a lot of people get up here and just expel a whole lot of information that is either right or wrong, and no one's getting answers, or they're allowed to have a podium to speak at about things that aren't really important, they're important to them, but maybe aren't being addressed in the bigger school district, or don't need to be addressed. I don't know. I just feel like the podium here has become too grand a stand. And that has been bothering me lately because I'm a really involved parent. I love Bristol. I love Warren. I want to be a part of the community here. And I don't like to see the divisiveness that's been happening up here. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Let me just give a little explanation. In the rules of open meetings law, we are allowed to say something if it's on the agenda. And Marianne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's not on the agenda, then that's what the podium ends up being, where there's a lot of conversation, the kind of conversation that I think you're looking for. That usually happens at the subcommittee level when everybody's sitting around the table and kind of talking about what their concerns are, vice facilities or any of the rest of that. So it's not intentional on anybody's part here to allow it to be some sort of a pulpit. It's just the way we are required to respond. And sometimes we quietly find those answers, get back to those people, and sometimes we just fix it. And sometimes we address it here, depending on what level it comes up at. But it's not meant to be rude or to appear as if we're not caring about what it is you have to say.
And I just want to say that I don't take it that way. But I do feel as though sometimes some people get a larger voice for their concerns. And I don't know how we resolve that, but it's a greater concern to others in the community. I think I'm not alone.
Okay, we'll take that under thought.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it, and we'll talk about it as a group and see what we can do about it.
Yeah, I mean,
that
we're a
along.
community who are all very different, filled with a bunch of different people. And I think if we can all come together as a community and work together, I think we'll be in a much better place.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Oh, no, there is no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to a question that just came up to us, and that's our COVID update. And I'm going to turn to Superintendent Riley because tonight she's going to update you all on what we're going to be doing.
Thank you. I had hoped to have a more fleshed out presentation for all of you, but we have not received the Department of Health's final updates in terms of changes moving forward. So the only information we've received so far is what you just shared as of Friday, the mask mandate ends. So we will be putting out communication to parents. We should have they have promised us that we will have the Department of Health information before the end of the week. And so as soon as we have that together, we will share out with parents. Masking will be recommended, but not required. It will be up to parents to make that decision with their children. Our numbers here in Bristol Warren have been very low just prior to vacation. I'm hoping that vacation doesn't amp up our numbers, but we'll be monitoring that. We'll be using the data to send information out to parents. We will continue to optimize ventilation. We have our air purifiers in every classroom. We monitor our HVAC systems. We'll still promote hand hygiene, hand washing, and our purifiers. We will still be doing screening and testing of students who we have permission for. So we'll be monitoring students for symptoms. If they have a symptom, they'll go to the nurse. The nurse will, check to see if they match the COVID symptoms. If we have permission, we'll do some testing. We'll reach out to parents like we would with any sick child. So we're moving more into what I've heard Dr. McDonald from the Department of Health say into an endemic phase where we'll really just be monitoring children to make sure they're not sick. And if they're sick, we'll reach out to parents and we'll follow the procedure. So for now, that is the information we have. When we have more, I'll put something together to go out to parents and to share with all of you. The only other thing we're waiting for confirmation is on buses. Currently, there's a federal mandate to wear masks. but the National Association of School Superintendents has petitioned the CDC for some clarity on that, on whether or not, if we're dropping the mask mandate in K-12 schools across the country, are we also going to continue that mask mandate on school buses? And so we're also waiting confirmation back on that bit of information. So when we have all of that together, we'll put it together and send it out to parents. So we'll send that via our mass email system. The other thing that I do want to speak to is we will also be talking to our students, our elementary, middle, and high school students, about choice and why some students may want to continue wearing their mask. They may have someone at home that's immunocompromised, or they may have younger siblings who aren't eligible yet for vaccines. There may be reasons why students will be wearing masks and why others won't, and we want to make sure that we have that atmosphere of kindness and support across all of our schools. So we'll be sharing that information with students also. So unfortunately, I don't have more formal recommendations because we don't have that all out from the Department of Health, but I did want to share that with you. And we'll watch our own data. So if for some reason one of our schools starts to spike up in cases, we'll let our parents know. Because then they might want to consider having their child masked for a while the numbers are high, and we can share that data out. So we will watch our data within the schools and within Bristol and Warren to keep parents informed so that you know what the numbers look like and whether that affects your decision on whether or not your child is masked. But we will continue the rest of our, all the things I mentioned, that the hygiene, the ventilation, the cleaning, all of that will continue to go on.
There's, yes, so the option starts on Monday.
On Monday. We
Correct.
will make sure parents are aware of that. We'll send something out.
The second thing, maybe you told me that you were going to do about parents being able to be in schools now?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. I did want to mention that. So we are also reopening our schools to parent volunteers. So if you haven't received notice from your school, you can go on our school websites or contact your school to fill out the volunteer in schools form, follow the procedure to do the background check, and then we will be inviting our parents back into our school building. So yes, thank you, Marge. I didn't write that on my notes.
Yeah, questions?
Yes, I do. When you are putting together the information, further detail, will you also be including like locker room protocol?
Yes.
And recess protocol?
Recess, cafeteria, lunch, all of those things. So those were the final bits of information we were waiting to hear from the Department of Health to make sure they're not requiring us to maintain any of those pieces. So
Okay.
We'll be working on those with our school nurses and principals as soon as they give us the data.
Okay, and the locker rooms at KMS?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, what will happen if with COVID staff that we've hired? I know that we've given them the layoff for the end of the year, but can you also include like nurse techs and the additional lunch staff that we've hired? And will they be continuing for the rest of the year, or will we be eliminating them? Because if everyone's going back into the cafeteria at KMS, do we still need somebody observing the auditorium?
So all of that money is being paid through a grant we received from the CDC, and the money goes through until the end of the year. So we will continue to keep that staff on. We'll just use them to support lunches and recess and all of that work. On nurse techs, we're still doing testing, so we still need that additional support. But that money, we have until June 30th, and so we'll continue to use that staff.
And then, sorry, one other thing is the athletic testing. So will we be continuing that as part of this?
That's another one of the pieces where we're
Okay.
waiting to hear back from, and I'm sure once the Department of Health makes that decision, the Rhode Island Interscholastic League will also follow. And so that's,
Okay.
those are some of the details that we have not heard from them. We were supposed to get it before break, and then they pushed it off till after break. So as soon as we get all that detailed, we'll create our own protocol to align with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else here have any questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Good, thank you very much.
Welcome.
I'm sure children will be looking forward to Monday, and I do hope they're kind to each other. All right, on to discussion and action items. The second item is the approval of the second reading of policy JC, elementary placement, as recommended by the Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. C, approval of the second reading of policy KBLE, family engagement as recommended by the Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. D, approval of the second reading of policy GBED/JHFAA, use of physical restraint as recommended by the Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Can I? Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to reiterate because I didn't get a chance. All of these are just sort of, we always have a first and a second reading. We haven't had any changes that have happened between the last full school committee and this. This is just part of process and policy. These policies were just things that we needed to clarify, legal concerns that we needed to address, and there is nothing too complicated. But if you had any specific questions, Aaron, that you wanted to make sure the public was aware of?
Well, yeah, and I was actually going to ask you to just remind us what changed in this policy.
Which
I'm sorry. If
No,
I'm
that's
putting you on
fine.
the spot, we can.
No, not at all. I'm trying to recall. I don't feel like we had.
I wonder, Mary Ann, do you know why this policy had to come back on?
We had to be updated, we hadn't done it in many years, and we
Yes.
have to be in compliance with the regulations throughout the Department of Education.
Okay.
We also wanted to make sure that the policy was comprehensive and really touched on all of the varying regulations that were put out through RIDE so that it kind of was more clear. Before, there was a lot of reference this, reference that, and this really spelled it out very clearly in terms of our expectations and how we're going to de-escalate students versus it being very vague. So hopefully that explains it.
Yes, thank you so much.
If needed, I do have the 2011 policy if you just wanted to look over it.
I'm in good shape.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the details. I'm a forest person, so sometimes I forget about the trees.
Okay.
Thank you.
We all set? All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And the last thing on our agenda and the thing we've all been waiting for is our budget for next year. So I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Riley and Tony and Mr. Ferrucci, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I do want to start by saying that the paper did reach out to us. There were some incorrect numbers and statements in the article. I am going to meet with Ethan tomorrow, and he's going to put out a follow-up article, and I will address some of the issues. I want to be clear, I've gotten many phone calls and concerns about cutting a music teacher. That is not on our agenda. So that was just someone misread something in one of our documents, so I want to be very clear about that.
I did see a retraction online,
Oh, okay.
and then the article disappeared. So
Oh, all right. So something will come out tomorrow. So he and I are following up tomorrow, but I just wanted to clear that out publicly. There will be reductions in staff. We do anticipate between retirements and some promotional positions that we're hiring for. That number will actually decrease from our total number of FTEs. So we may cut FTEs. That doesn't necessarily mean the cutting of people, depending on the other positions that open up in the district. So I just want to put that out there. So we went through this presentation the last time that we met, and I walked you through our draft strategic plan and highlighted the priorities that we were making sure we addressed in the budget. Because although we are we have created efficiencies within this budget, that doesn't mean that we have pushed aside our goals in moving forward and prioritizing improving achievement for students. And so really focusing on areas that we have targeted: climate and culture, teaching and learning, professional learning, expanding our career and tech educational programs, and really just creating and streamlining operational excellence, which are all of our kind of internal processes, our human resources, our financial components, all of our tech. So really making sure those things are aligned and efficient. Oops. All right, and so I won't go through the details of each objective again. I want to highlight, again, these are the recommended budget requests, so this is where we're targeting our improvements. I like to say this is where we're looking for that return on investment. What is the staffing? What are the things that we're adding to the budget that we anticipate using our data is really going to improve student achievement? So we have a literacy coordinator, K-8. We have not had a math coordinator, K-8. We've had someone kind of acting in that role, but have never made that role official. So we wanted to really prioritize that role. Again, the technology updates over the last 2 years, you've made significant investments in technology. We just want to make sure that we keep that on more of a rolling basis so we don't ever have big lump sum expenses. So one of the other things that you saw in the paper was that we had projected a staffing reduction in terms of paraprofessionals. And really the reason that's happening is currently, those are the folks who are supporting many of our students who have IEPs. And we're moving more to a model that pairs one special educator with one general educator. So we will hire more special educators in order to provide the level of service that our students need and deserve. Currently, our students who have IEPs, proficiency levels are in the single digits. We have to address that issue. And this is one of the ways in which we'll be doing it. And you'll actually see me advocating for the hiring of more special education teachers over the next several budget seasons. We can't afford to just hire them all at once, but you'll see us advocating and increasing that in the budget over the next couple of years until we get to a level which can support all of our students. We'll also be hiring a special education coordinator. Currently, we have 2 part-time folks and 2 full-time folks. We'll be moving to 4 full-time coordinators to support the special education office. We'll also be hiring 4 achievement coaches. This may not be a title that you're familiar with. So many districts have what's called an instructional coach, which is coaches that support professional learning with staff throughout the district. And that is really what our achievement coaches are going to do, but they're going to focus on areas where we can improve student achievement. So they'll be looking at classroom data where students need additional support and be working in those classrooms in 6 to 8 week cycles in order to improve both literacy and math. And then finally, to continue to try to close that opportunity gap for our kindergarten students. We still have many kindergarten students who aren't able to or don't attend pre-K. So we'll be offering another pre-K. So currently we have a program at Hugh Cole. We'll also be offering pre-K over at Colt Andrews. So again, working towards closing that opportunity gap for students to help improve their chances of success in kindergarten when they start with us. So that's kind of the big picture where we are making some investments in the budget. So I don't want anyone in the community to think all we're doing is cutting. We are putting in expenses where we believe they'll have an impact on student achievement. So this is the first chart that we shared with you last time with no TBDs on it, so that you can see all of the expenses for last year, and then what we're looking for this year. Overall, although we're asking for, I'll go into the detail and then on the next slide, we're going to a 1% increase in expenses overall. And really you'll see the bulk of that, the 500 and so thousand or so comes in salaries and benefits, which is really the bulk of our budget. That's true for most school department budgets. There's not a lot of flex in our budgets. We have a lot of fixed costs, and what you see here going up are really the fixed costs. And I brought Mr. Ferrucci with me so he can answer any detailed question you have on these other lines going down. So when we have our questions, he can certainly answer any of those. But most of the numbers, even where you see, property went up 59.6%, $77,000 is what that relates to. So it looks like a very large percent, and we can address what that cost is, but that's only a $77,000 increase. And then what you see on this page are our expected revenues. So you can see that currently what we're expecting in state aid has a small decrease from the previous year, about 36,000 or so. Our local revenue is going up almost, making that negligible. And then really what you see now is the total town appropriation that we're looking for from both Bristol and Warren is at an increase of 2.5%. So we're working with both town finance directors and town administrators to do the calculation to figure out how that appropriation will be split amongst both Bristol and Warren. And then we'll present those numbers as a team to the JFC on Thursday. But that 2.5% is what we're looking for in terms of a total increase from both towns. Then we are happy to answer any questions you have on that detail.
Yes, you may. I'm going to let somebody from the audience ask a question, because this is our budget presentation before we go to joint finance. Go right ahead.
Should I go there or can you hear me this way? I'm not sure.
No, you need to go to the podium because it's hooked up to the,
Jessica Almeida from Bristol. Ms. Riley, I just had two quick questions. I'll start with this slide since we're here. The state aid has decreased. Now, is that due to some students who have been taken out of the district for whatever reason, whether that's been homeschool or such? Does that have any determination on what the state aid, that particular number?
That's one of the components, but there are others. Tony, if you could pitch in since you.
Yeah, the governor's budget, recommended budget is to level fund schools, so the declining enrollment is not going to be built into next year's.
Okay.
There are high costs for special ed, and there's some other ancillary small pieces, and it's one of those small categories. It's not the declining enrollment issue, or like I said, some student that's moving out of the building and going out places, what have you. So that's not the impact this year.
Okay, thank you. And the one last question, it was actually on slide 9. I just wanted to know what the miscellaneous includes. I know the change was 47.9, which does seem large, but I see the change of a little over 35,000. But specifically, do you know what's in the miscellaneous? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
in this case, Mr. Fucci, if you don't have the answer, it's okay to say I don't have the answer.
No, under the UCOA coding, miscellaneous expenditures are what we consider the 5A classifications. Those are professional dues and fees that are associated with undertaking, as well as bad debt falls into that basket. And I can give you a rundown of the specific account names in a second.
In that second section, Tony, so it's claims and settlements for $10,000, professional organization fees, that's going up slightly, and then other dues and fees. So some of these, so particularly for the professional organization fees, in the prior years, they would have been in a different line, and we have just put things where they belong. So this is one of those that's been reclassified to where it belongs in terms of how it's being paid. It might have been getting paid out of general supplies before, and we put it where it belongs in membership and fees. The UCOA code fields are, how many hundreds of them, Mr. Ferrucci? I forget. So we're doing a lot of cleanup in our budget to put things where they belong. And so that's why that increase is there.
Understood. Thank you both.
Sure.
Yes.
Does Jesselyn Jarrest, Bristol, does any of the funding, is any of it reallocated for mental health as we're in the middle of a pandemic and hopefully working our way out of it? I know that need is probably pretty strong.
Absolutely. So you don't see it reflected in our general fund. We still have our regular mental health supports in the general fund. In addition to that, that's how we're leveraging our ESSA3 funding. So we are using that to hire additional social workers to support in the schools. We're also going to spend the year piloting some social emotional learning curriculum, and then purchasing that curriculum the following year using our ESSA3 funds to support students.
I just want to add that social emotional learning is a very important part of work that is done in schools, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, including professional development. for our
Absolutely,
staff.
all the way around. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sheila has a question.
Hi. So I just wanted to thank both you and Mr. Ferrucci streamlining and kind of coming up with these documents that are very detailed and thorough. Through this process, the public probably doesn't know is that the back side of this, Mr. Ferrucci has been cleaning up the accounts, meaning that there were charges that weren't in the right place the past years. So he's been aligning, cleaning it up. It's a huge process, and it's a huge undertaking to clean up and streamline our financials. With that, I think they've done an excellent job with going account by account, trying to figure out what they need. we have for the first time ever a position control, which is so important. We now know what teachers are in what buildings, what's the financial impact when someone leaves, when someone comes, when someone retires, how much are we saving there? So it's a lot of moving pieces, and I think they've done an excellent job because that's the majority of our budget. So the majority of our budget, Mr. Ferrucci, you can say it's probably 90% salary and benefits, which is a fixed cost. So the rest of it is consultants, not consultants, it's contracted services, it's transportation, which is huge. I think the biggest thing that we need is to go to our legislation and try and talk to them about helping us with the transportation. We're in a huge zone, which puts our district in the liability of having to pay for people that go to LaSalle or Hendricken or outside of us. We're not in the East Bay zone. That's right? East Bay, which costs us a lot of money. The other thing is we don't get anything for regional benefit, which we used to get, which would help us in the revenue side. So there are a lot of things we need help with from the community, and that is to talk to our state rep and our Senate rep and go and tell them that we need them to lobby for us to change that, which will help our district immensely. But I just want to thank all of you for all of your hard work and dedication of getting our financials to a point where it's accurate reporting and we know what we're doing. And I appreciate that more than you know.
And I do want to say for the public, what we shared here in this presentation is the macro level, but on our website, you can see the full detailed budget. So if you're one of those people who likes to look all the way down to the dollars and cents, that's available to you on our website in each of these components. So this is the big picture, the forest, as you called it. This is the forest, but if you want to see all the way down to the trees and roots and dirt level, that's on our website. So you're welcome to dig into all of that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Actually, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's sitting up here, and particularly our Mr. Frucci and Superintendent Riley and the members of the Budget Subcommittee. I've never seen people work so hard in so long with such a mess on their hands. And yes, I'm smiling tonight. You noticed that. You've done a magnificent job. You've held our feet to the fire. You've kept us going. And I just really, from the bottom of my heart, thank all of you for the hard work and the tears and the frustration and the banging of the chairs and the desks and throwing things and all of the other things that went on to get us to where we are. But we are here and we're here to stay. And so thank you very much to everybody. And with that, does anybody else have any questions? Yes?
I just wanted to make two comments. First, I want to thank all of the principals and all the directors and all the administrators who participated in the budget process. We were all put under the gun because of the delay in getting the packages out. But we're poised for next year to be in a really good spot to work collaboratively and creating a vision for the district. So this isn't the end. This is the kickoff of the new beginning. And I think everybody's embracing that. This evening you have before you budgets that are aligned with responsibilities and accountability. When I first got here, I noticed all of your budgets were building based, but when you talk to the principal, 90% of the accounts they didn't have access to. Who had access to what became very problematic. So we're creating a presentation that will align with various administrators and directors' visions of the district, that the superintendent will coordinate and align with the strategic plan. And so when people present their budgets, they'll talk about their resources and the things that they need, and it will align with their vision. And I think it'll be much more clear for the community to understand the contribution by the assistant superintendent's office, by the facilities office, by the technology office, by the principals themselves, by department heads within the schools. And when we get grants specific to staff, teachers, and what have you, they'll fit into that same basket. So I think the collaborative discussion is going to change dramatically over the next couple of years. So it's not just building-based, who owns it, we don't know, but blah, 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 blah. So I want to thank everybody for those efforts to line us up for what I think is going to be a really good future. And the only other piece I wanted to point out is this presentation this evening is the general fund for the operating of the schools, because this is what we had presented back on February 14th. After the 14th, I was able to dive in and do the analysis needed in order to determine the debt service side of the ledger, which also needs to go to the JFC. And so this evening in your packet, you have the summary for the total general fund and debt fund in your books, and I passed out the corrected version, so you should have that in front of you. So what I just wanted to clarify is that on top of the presentation this evening, there is $1.5 million in principal and interest, which has been a reoccurring expenditure that the district's familiar with, and the community is already contributing against that debt service. Interest on that principal payment is going down, and the principal payment is going up slightly. So the impact to the community request, in addition to the $1 million that's on the table, is, I'm going to say, only $38,000. But on $1.8 million of bond payments, it's actually going in the right direction. And so that's also part of your resolution. So the total budget that the school department will be seeking when we go to the JFC, if approved as it's presented this evening, is $56,950,024. So that's the additional 1.585 that's being added to the bottom line of the presentation that's on the screen this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Frucci. And also, I'd like to remind all the audience that the first JFC meeting is this Thursday night at 7 o'clock in the high school auditorium. No, here in the cafeteria? I'm sorry, in the cafeteria. And Tara had something she wanted to say.
Yes, we had requested the breakdown by school enrollment.
That should have been emailed out to all.
Did we? It was,
I think Kate sent it out.
okay. I haven't looked at my emails today, so I don't know. No, by school.
Diane Santa's, Dr. Santa's.
If you don't have it yet, we'll make sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Yes, I think.
I just wanted to ask this question that I got to ask you, so I know the
sure.
answer, but I feel like when I was sitting in that chair, it was the question I wanted the answer to, which is less than, the humans are the most important thing, right, that are involved in teaching our kids. But as a parent, I always wonder what the programmatic impact of cuts is, not just numbers of FTEs, right? What is the programmatic impact? So if you could address that a little,
Sure.
just for parents at home.
Sure. So the staff cuts will not have any programmatic impact. So what we've done is look at enrollment and looked at where that decline in enrollment is without reducing programs. So thank you for bringing that up. You're correct. We are not cutting programming through this budget. We are simply reducing based on enrollment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
I just, again, wanted to reiterate how grateful I am for the tremendous amount of work that went into this process. As a layperson that doesn't have extensive training in budgets and process, it was the easiest budget for me to understand and read all 145 or so pages of it. Things were intuitive and they were understandable. The efficiencies that were discovered and lumped together. We're taking care of social emotional needs, which is critically important, as community members have pointed out, especially at this sort of hopefully middle end section of the pandemic. I know even within my own circles, we're seeing so much struggle with kiddos just trying to kind of cope with whatever's going on at home on a normal day, and in addition to sort of COVID related things. As Nikki said, I'm grateful that we could still take care of the greater needs of our students, the humans, and also the educators. I hate that we have to cut anybody at any time, but I feel confident in this budget in a way that I haven't in the past. And I think having the leadership in place and the systems and the accountability by looking at things by building and by department, that building leaders such as principals can really kind of take charge. And as you said, Mr. Ferrucci, kind of build their own vision or be able to fulfill their own vision. So I'm very, very pleased with how this is kind of coming together. And it feels like a sea change in how we approach budgeting as a community and how we sort of look at our responsibilities. So thank you very much for that.
Anybody else? Good, hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
No.
Approve the budget.
We need a motion to approve. So moved. So moved. Motion to approve. Victor seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Now, motion to adjourn.
Yes, please, thank you.
Second.
So moved. Discussion.
All of that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll see you
I wanna
Thursday
stay.
night.
I want to stay. Yes, we'll see you Thursday night.
Thursday. Yeah.